Gospel according to Luke. Then they arrived at the country of the Gerasenes, which is opposite Galilee. As Jesus stepped out on the land, a man of the city who had demons met him. For a long time he'd worn no clothes, and he didn't live in a house but in the tombs. And when he saw Jesus, he fell down before him and shouted at the top of his voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I beg you, do not torment me." For Jesus had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man. For many times it had seized him. He was kept under guard and bound with chains and shackles, but he would break the bonds and be driven by the demon into the wilds. Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Legion," for many demons had entered him. And they begged him not to order them to go back into the abyss. Now, there on the hillside, a large herd of swine was feeding, and the demons begged Jesus to let them enter these, so he gave them permission. And the demons came out of the man and entered the swine, and the herd rushed down the steep bank into the lake and was drowned. And when the swineherds saw what had happened, they ran off and told it in the city and in the country. Then people came out to see what had happened, and when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Those who had seen it told them how the one who had been possessed by demons had been healed. Then all the people of the surrounding country of the Gerasenes asked Jesus to leave them, for they were seized with great fear. So he got into the boat and returned. The man from whom the demons had gone begged that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, "Return to your home and declare how much God has done for you." So he went away, proclaiming throughout the city how much Jesus had done for him. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Usually when we think about sin, we think about personal sin. We think about my sin. We think that sin is an individual matter. The Gospel today helps us see that sin is not just personal, but that there are societal sins. There are structural sins. There are sins that are part of a whole community of people. And you'll see this. Very interesting. I remember when I was at seminary in Iowa, in the same town, Dubuque, Iowa, was also University of Dubuque, and they had seminary there for the Methodists and Presbyterians. And we could take a couple classes over there if we wanted. Took a preaching class over there, and the teacher, his name was Dr. Baird, and I enjoyed him. And I'll never forget what he told us. He said, "I am an alcoholic." He says, "I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I am sober now for many years, and I don't drink." And then he said this, which mystified me. He said, "After I got sober, that's when my wife divorced me." And he said, "She preferred me drunk." And then he goes on to explain, alcoholism isn't just a personal sin, is it? I call it a disease. I think it's most helpful to call it a disease. But it doesn't just affect the person who drinks too much, does it? It affects the whole family. His wife didn't like him sober, because then she had to deal with her problems, her dysfunction. She had been enabling him all those years. And now he was getting honest with his life. She didn't want to. She wanted to remain sick. I hope that doesn't sound cold, but it's more common than you think that someone will sober up, and the spouse, that's when they don't want to be with them anymore. They prefer them unhealthy because they're unhealthy. Yeah. That's what's happening in this community. Do you see that? This man, he's kind of like the town drunk. We had, in Holstein, Iowa, we literally had a town drunk. Just like on the Andy Griffith Show. Remember that show? Remember Otis? Mm-hmm. Our town drunk was named Sweeney. And he was. He was the town drunk. And we liked it that way. You know why? You see, we could look at Sweeney and we could say, I may have a couple problems in my life, but at least I'm not like him. We do that, don't we? We like it. A community likes it when there's a scapegoat for the problems. That way we don't have to look at our lives, at my life. This man was living in misery, huh? What's the saddest point of this story is when Jesus is interacting with him. It says that Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" And this man, he had no name. He was just the man filled with demons that ran around naked amongst the tombstones. Because he says, "I am Legion." Well, that's not his name. Legion is a term that refers to 4,000 or 5,000 Roman soldiers. And he was occupied by all of these demons and this conversation. So then Jesus gave them permission to go into the pigs. And I just have to say, because I'm from Iowa, pigs do not walk about in herds. I read this and it bothers me every time. Anybody that knows anything about pigs do their own thing. They are not like cows. They don't follow. So that bothers me. But anyway, so the demons went into the pigs, and the pigs all drowned themselves. And then it says this. It says, when the swineherd saw, they ran off and told everybody. And then the people came to see what had happened. Now notice this, and it says, and when they came to Jesus, all the people of the city, it says, they saw the man sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. And then it says, and they were afraid. Did you notice that? Before that, it says nothing about them being afraid while this man was full of demons. He was their town drunk, so to speak. They could look at that man and say, he's the one that has problems, not me. Now he is healthy. And then it says they were afraid. I think they were afraid because they had to begin to look at themselves. And they may have begun to think, if Jesus can do that to that poor man, what might he want to change in my life as well? That's what I think partly is what is going on here. The Apostle Paul says, judge not, lest you be judged. Do you know that verse? And every time we point the finger of judgment, where do the other two fingers go? They point right back at us. And it's very handy for communities of people to have a scapegoat. That way we don't need to examine our lives, our hearts, our sin. The man wants to go with Jesus, and I would too. And I think this is a wonderful, beautiful picture of the power of God. He has healed this man. He has delivered this man. And he says, Jesus, I want to go with you. I would, wouldn't you? And what does Jesus tell him?
Go home.
You need to go. That's right. He does. He says, go home. And why does he want him to go home? Keep going. Because he wants them to do what?
He wants to share what happened with him.
Jesus wants him to tell everybody what God has done for him. Even though Jesus healed the man, Jesus is still concerned for the whole community of people. I imagine it took a lot of courage for this man to go back into the city. I want to finish with a little story. When I was about 12 or 13, there was a man, his name was Roy Perkins, and he was a hopeless alcoholic. And he put his family through hell. There's no other way. And he quit drinking. He did. He quit drinking. And my dad, as you could probably imagine, I've described my father to you, haven't I? He said to Roy, I got all this land, find yourself a spot. And he came out, and this man, this old man, well, probably wasn't that old, he's probably in his 50s. And he grew this beautiful garden. But not only did that, he taught me how to grow a garden. And he was very kind, and we used to throw horseshoes. And then I started to think, I wanted to say to Roy, where are your friends? You know, why would he make friends with a 13-year-old boy? And there was nothing creepy about it. And then I finally figured it out, that all of his friends were sitting up at Rosie's. It was called Jack's Place then. They didn't want anything to do with him anymore.
He was healthy.
Because he was healthy. And he had no friends. My father. And the sad part of it is that he started to drink again. You know? I mean, how horrible. We can't blame that community because he made that decision, but then he died. And it still bothers me to this day that not only did he need to be healed, but he needed a community of people who would accept him sober now. That just haunts me. You know?
Yeah.
There are people in our world who want to be healthy, who want to get over their demons, and when they do, they need us to come around them and accept them. Jesus can heal us personally. Jesus can heal the community. And I think that's wonderful. That's good news.